like to start by asking all of you to close your eyes. I want you to think back to a dream, something that you wanted to create for yourself or for the world, something you wanted to see exist in the future that didn't already exist. But here's the twist. I want you to think about a dream that you failed to bring to life, something that still doesn't exist today. Maybe you're kicking yourself as you think about this. Maybe you're wondering what you could have or should have done differently. Maybe you're thinking about what might have been different for you, for your family, for your community. I know it might be tough, but really feel whatever you're feeling right now. Visualize it. Sit with it for a second. You can open your eyes now, but let that sink in. That was a dream deferred, maybe even dashed. We'll get back to that later. I moved to the US when I was 5 years old. I'm the proud daughter of 2 resilient immigrants who came to this country to live the American dream. For us, a lot of that was about education. So for 12 years, my parents sent my sisters and I to school after school after school. I counted the other day, 9 in total, to try to find the perfect place for us to learn how to live this dream. But the reality was, no matter where I went, private school, public school, on the West Coast, in the Deep South, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I tended to be bored out of my mind. I was a dreamer. I had big ideas and visions. I was full of hope and optimism and ambition, and school really didn't know what to do with that. There wasn't really anyone teaching me how to turn my dreams into something concrete or take that on, turn it into action. Decades later, after years of working with young people as a coach, as a teacher, as a mentor, and after spending time in schools as a college journalist, I learned that unfortunately, my experience was not an exception, it was the norm. I talked to hundreds of students over time, and I heard over and over the same thing. School felt irrelevant to them. It felt like it had so little to do with the things that actually excited them, that motivated them. And we're learning more and more that it's not even really preparing them for life after school. We hear business leaders talking every day about how school isn't preparing young people for the workforce, and certainly not for the workforce of the future. And so we run the risk of squandering the potential, the talent, the genius of tens of millions of young people. The kicker was that I wasn't just hearing all of this from students. I was hearing it from teachers, from principals, from guidance counselors. They're not only not to blame, they've known for decades that school isn't working for anyone. We're just in want of a solution. The conversation, the debate around education has been raging in our country for decades. At this point, most people agree that there are some fundamentals that every young person has to learn, some basic math, some reading, some writing. But I've been really encouraged and excited that ideas like personalized learning, like project-based learning, like social-emotional learning have started to gain more and more traction in schools. But something's still been bothering me over the years as I've talked to educators and to young people, which is, what does this all add up to? Something seems like it was missing, because ultimately, arguably, all of these different ideas, all these different fields are all about the same thing, right? They're trying to prepare young people for the future, to help equip them to live the most extraordinary lives that they possibly can. So what if we just need to take it a step further, be a little bit more explicit and intentional about it? Which leads me to my question, my big question, the question that I'm spending my life, and many others are as well, trying to answer. What if school intentionally taught young people how to dream? I think about dreaming in a really practical way, as a practice that can be mastered over time. It was, in fact, dreams that led to every major breakthrough in history. Everything from the Underground Railroad, to the first Model T, to the first trip to the moon, to all the thousands of productions of The Lion King on Broadway. They all had to be imagined first. They all had to be imagined first as a concrete vision. Dreams, to me, are not just something pie in the sky. They're vivid imagery. They're pattern recognition. That's what dreaming is. Dreaming is critical thinking. It's inductive reasoning. It's synthesis. It's communication. It's packaging and prototyping. And it's leadership. What more is great leadership than casting a bold, clear, inspiring vision and in galvanizing others to commit to it, whatever it takes? Dreaming is also science. Researchers have shown that dreaming provides a platform. The skill of dreaming, the process of dreaming provides a platform for us to realize our full potential. The more time somebody spends dreaming, the more proficiency they build in it, the more they're oriented toward their future and toward meaningful long-term goals that they are willing to commit to and take on. That's a pretty big deal. And it's even a bigger deal for young people. The famous Torrance study showed that the biggest predictor of creative success and achievement long-term isn't grades, it isn't IQ, it's the ability of a child to cast a clear vision for their future. It's a pretty big deal. Another study took young people in school and asked them at the beginning of the year to cast a vision for their future, for their academic future. And then they gave them the opportunity to build the specific skills they needed to learn to get to that future. By the end of the year, those students, compared to the students who didn't go through this exercise, were more connected to school, were more inspired, were more motivated. They were dropping out of school less, they were showing up more, and especially the male students were having less behavioral problems and disciplinary problems. Interestingly, maybe ironically, the opposite of those outcomes, cutting class, acting out, being disengaged, are often the things that you think of when you think of dreaming and when you think of dreamers. And so school, which isn't, as I'm trying to make a case here, is school isn't a place right now that's calibrated to teach young people how to dream. Because of that, they don't give you much time to reflect on your past, to think about your future. And scientists have actually shown that simply going to school every day can diminish a young person's capacity and capability to dream. That's a pretty big deal, too. So this brings me to a second question. What would be possible in the world? What could be possible in the world if every single young person, and by extension then every one of us, every person, learned the skills of dreaming, really had the chance to master them? Don't get me wrong, there are tons of people in society today and throughout history who are masters of dreaming. Walt Disney, Harriet Tubman, Albert Einstein, these people are black belts. They know what they're doing. But they also spent decades learning how to dream. And they screwed up thousands of times along the way, which, by the way, is good news for all of us because it means that we can learn too. And today, as our world is more complex and contentious than it's ever been, as you know, it's changing more rapidly than it ever has, we not only can do this, we must do this. We must learn the skills of creating the future that we actually want to see. We can't leave it to chance. We can't leave it to chance that young people, that any young person, based on where they go to school, where they grew up, might not learn how to create the future for themselves or for the world that they believe in, that they would not learn the skills of dreaming. It is this commitment, this idea, that brought a group of us together about 5.5 years ago to start an organization called the Future Project, which is a national nonprofit devoted to teaching young people how to dream. We created a new role in schools called a dream director. Dream directors are trained coaches and facilitators and leaders embedded in schools and trained in our research-based methodology that leads hundreds of young people in a school to learn to define and build their dreams. They use cutting-edge techniques that we've been studying with researchers like mental contrasting and structured exposure to teach students the process of looking out into the world, identifying something that really matters to them, and then learning how to take that idea and turn it into something real. Here are some dream directors. Nice. They're kind of magical. They also work with teachers and administrators and all the adults in the building to create the kind of culture in a school that supports and values dreaming and that encourages students in a safe and inspiring way to take risks and to build the kinds of skills I was talking about earlier. This is a dream director. So what does it actually look like? Over the last 5 years, we have built the Future Project up to serve more than 30,000 students across the country in cities from San Francisco to Detroit to Newark to right here in New York City and more. We've built our team from a ragtag group of volunteers to a staff of more than 100 full-time people across the country. And we've seen our students build thousands of dreams, we call them future projects, over time. We've seen their leadership skills improve, their social emotional skills improve, and we've seen cultures of schools start to shift, with attendance going up, disciplinary issues going down, and students and teachers starting to work together better and get along better. And what does it actually look like when a student learns how to dream? I think we heard a little bit about that actually with Ella right before this. But I'll leave you with just a couple of quick stories. So this is Andrew Lee. He's a student in Washington, D.C. who was labeled as disabled very early in his school career. He decided to write a book to ensure that any other student who was experiencing what he did wouldn't feel alone. This is Lena Jacobs. She raised tens of thousands of dollars and built a team to turn a school bus into this dream bus and took it across the country to hear and document the stories of people who were dreamers and action all across the country in different walks of life. This is Kayla Marte, who started a project called Restart Day because her school was slated for closure here in New York City, and the students and the principal and all the teachers were distraught. She brought the school together, helped heal and unite them, went on to be the first in her family to graduate from college, and then started interning at the Department of Education because she wants every single school culture to be positive and safe for their students. And this is D'Angelo Hughes from Detroit, who lost his mother to illness a couple of years ago and launched an organization. He just filed his 501c3 papers to support other students who were experiencing grief and coming together and ensuring that they had the skills to cope. This is the dream director. It's amazing. It has been amazing and inspiring to me to see our students turn their dreams into reality, to learn those skills and put them into action before they're even 18. And I believe that it is these students and tens of millions of more across the country who are going to lead us into a future that's more just, that's more inspiring, that's more fair for all people. And I think it's up to us, all of us in society, to create the conditions in which they really learn what it takes to dream and put their dreams into action. So I invite you now to step into the role of the dream director, to figure out how you can be a dream director to the young people around you, and to join this amazing community of students and educators and philanthropists and community members across the country who are helping to reimagine the future of growing up and of school in this country and beyond. Thank you.